Hello everyone, welcome back to S4 Eduvision by Snehal. In today's video, we will cover one of the most important foundation topics in statistics. Whether you are preparing for your university examination or building your concepts from the beginning, this video will help you understand the basics clearly. Before we begin, let us ask you a simple question. Every day we hear numbers like today's temperature, number of students in a class, exam marks, or population of a city. We also come across information such as blood groups, gender, or favorite colors. Have you ever wondered what all this information is called in statistics? The answer is data. Data is the foundation of every statistical study. Without data, we cannot collect information, cannot perform analysis, or draw meaningful conclusions. So let's start by understanding the most basic and important concept in statistics. That is data, followed by what are the characteristics of data, what are different types of scales, and different type of data. At the end of this video, I will be sharing some frequently asked university examination questions based on all the topics covered today. So make sure you watch the video till the end, note down the questions and try answering them on your own for better practice. Let's understand that not all the data are in the same form. Data can be classified into raw data and statistical data. Raw data is the original data collected throughout various sources, such as surveys, experiments without any processing or arrangement done on it. Few example is daily rainfall, number of customers visiting a shop, marks obtained by students in an exam, runs scored by a batsman in each match and so on. Statistical data is the data which is being organized, classified or processed for analysis purpose, which is meaningful and easy to understand. Few examples are the data which is collected of daily temperature throughout the month. The meteorological department can announce different parameters out of it. The summary of average temperature, highest temperature, lowest temperature can be recorded. If the data of runs scored by a batsman in each match are recorded, then we can talk about the summary obtained from this data, such as total runs scored by the batsman, average of that batsman, highest score achieved, and half centuries and first century as well. Let's understand the difference between the two types of data with simple real life example. Imagine you own a grocery shop. Throughout the day, customers purchase different items. You simply write down each sales as it happens, such as rice 2 kg, sugar 1 kg as per the time. At this stage, these are just individual observations recorded in the order they occurred. So this is called raw data. Now, at the end of the day, you want to know which products sold the most. So, you summarize the data. Which item and the total quantity sold of that corresponding item. So, now this is the organized summary, which is called statistical data. Now that we have understood raw data and statistical data, let's move to another important concept, that is characteristic of data. Characteristics are the features or qualities of a unit, maybe person, object or event, which can be studied systematically. The two types of characteristics is first is attribute, which is the qualitative characteristic of data, and it cannot be measured in numbers. It is described in the form of categories or qualities such as eye color, gender, religion of a person, beauty, honesty, etc. Another type is variable, which is a quantitative characteristic of data. They can be measured or counted numerically, such as number of children in a family, height, weight, age, income, and mark score of students, etc. Now that we know what an attribute is, let's look at its two types. First one is binary attribute, which is having only two mutually exclusive categories known as dichotomous attribute, and second one is manifold attribute, which is having more than two categories and known as multiple attribute. A beautiful representation of all examples in dichotomous and manifold attribute data is given below. So, a person can be categorized gender-wise as male or female, literate or illiterate, married or unmarried, employed or unemployed, and a student's examination result status can be classified into two types as pass or fail. In manifold attribute, blood group of a person can be categorized into more than two types, that is A, B, AB or O. Then the religion of particular person can be of more than two types. Similarly, of eye color, nationality of a person, and grade of the student. Let's move on to types of variables. First is discrete variable, which takes distinct, separate, countable values, and continuous variable takes any value in the given range, including fractions and decimal. The pictorial representation of the examples are given below. In discrete variables, number of students in the class, number of children in a family, number of books, etc. And in continuous variables, measuring height, weight, time, temperature are few examples. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and try to identify the correct type for each example before checking the answers. And once you have finished, I'd like you to do one more thing. Go to the comment section and share one or two new examples on all the concepts we have learned till now from your daily life. Remember that teaching and learning go hand in hand, and I have learned a lot from my students during my teaching career, and I am sure we will continue learning from each other through this channel. Did you get all the answers correct? If not, don't worry. Review the concepts once again and try solving similar examples. So far we have learned about data, its characteristics, and now the question is how do we measure them? And the answer to it is through scales of measurements, which is the system used to classify or measure data according to the specific rules. The types of scales tell us what kind of information the data provide and what statistical methods we can use. So there are four basic scales of measurements. First one is nominal scale, second is ordinal scale, third one is interval scale, and last is ratio scale. Let's understand the type of scales with help of ladder of measurement scales. Think of this ladder as moving from the simplest scale at the bottom to the most informative scale at the top. As we move up the ladder, each scale includes all the properties of the previous one and adds a new feature. Nominal scale. It is the first step where It classifies data into categories. There is no order or ranking, such as blood group of person, gender, etc. In ordinal scale, it classifies data and also provides a meaningful order or ranking. Example, satisfaction level, class rank, and etc. In interval scale, it has categories, order, and equal intervals between the values, but it does not have a true zero. Example, temperature in Celsius. And in ratio scale, it has all the properties of the previous scales, and it also includes a true or absolute zero. It allows meaningful comparisons such as twice as much, for example, height, weight, age, etc. So far, we have discussed the four basic scales of measurements, and in some statistical courses, you will also come across linear scale and the circular scale, which describes how data are represented or measured. What is its difference? Linear scale, here the values are arranged in a straight line in order and do not repeat cyclically. For example, height, weight, age, time durations, etc. In circular scale, values are arranged in a cycle and repeat after a certain point. There is no fixed beginning or end to it. Examples such as clock time, days of the week, months of the year, compass directions, angles, etc. We now reach the last concept of today's video, that is types of data. Let's see how data can be classified based on its source, time of collection, and nature. Primary data is the data collected first-hand by the investigator researcher for a specific study. It is original, authentic, and collected directly from the source. It is costly and time-consuming, but highly reliable. Few examples are conducting a survey, interviewing people, performing an experiment, making direct observations. Secondary data. Data it is already collected and published by someone else and are used for a new study. It is readily available, it saves time and cost. It is useful for comparison and reference. Few examples are government census reports, books and journals, research articles, company reports, websites, etc. Based on time dimensions, cross-sectional data, where data is collected at one particular point in time from different individuals, places, or objects. It represents the summary of the population. No time trend is shown but can be used for comparison. For example, the marks of say 50 students in this particular exam collected in this semester. So here the data are collected only once. So they are called cross-sectional data. Time series data is the data collected over different periods of time on the same variable. Time shows trend and changes over time, which is used for forecasting. Few examples are like monthly rainfall, daily temperature, annual sales of a company. So these data helps us to study trends and changes over time. Based on nature, directional data, where data is measured in terms of direction or angle rather than ordinary numerical values. For example, wind directions, light direction, compass directions, angle of movements. So now let us discuss few questions which are frequently asked in university examination. Questions such as define data, explain the characteristics of statistical data, and differentiate between, say, raw data and statistical data, between discrete and continuous variables, between primary and secondary data, between cross-sectional and time series data, directional data, with examples. Questions like explain attributes and variables with examples, classify the given data according to the appropriate type of scales, and so on. In the next video, we will move one step further and understand two very important concepts about statistical population and sampling, which are the foundation of statistical survey and research. So don't miss the next topic. Thank you all for being part of today's learning journey. Share your questions and examples in the comment. Like, share and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video. Happy learning and best of luck.